Well, good morning. I'm Ken Biberaj, and welcome to Coffee with Ken, a thought leadership series at the nexus of business, politics, and workforce. We're thrilled to kick off our fall season here in person in Boston, Massachusetts, for a timely conversation about building the workforce of the future. Thrilled to be joined by Lauren Jones, the Secretary of Labor and Workforce Development for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And our dear friend, Gerald Chertavian, harder than my last name, founder of Year Up. And Gerald and I had the chance to meet when we were interviewing Governor Pritzker in Chicago. And it's just a testament to how you all spent the morning, about networking, getting to know each other. And we were at dinner, and I had the opportunity to learn more about Year Up directly from him. And that's when we kind of, conceived of this idea of coming and doing it in person, and the added benefit of having so many of you here today in person just makes it even more exciting, because we spent the morning, for folks watching at home, networking. You guys were doing networking bingo. You were meeting leaders in the community from Boston, and the leaders from the business community were able to meet all of you young people who are going to make tremendous differences in your community. So we're excited about the conversation today. So without further ado, I think we're going to start with you, Madam Secretary. You have a distinguished career both in the public sector, private sector, and with nonprofits. When you think about creating pathways, how do you approach such a daunting kind of challenge as developing a workforce?
Well, Ken, first of all, good morning, and good morning to all the students in the audience. When I think about our workforce and investing in career pathways, I think about rooms like this. We have to center a workforce agenda based on people. It's certainly the people that make up our workforce today, making sure that we're retaining them, developing them, but also making sure that we're investing in career pathways for our rising students who are studying in our schools, going into higher education or additional career credentialing programs, and making sure that there's a connection to the skills you're learning with the opportunities that we know employers are looking for. And so really centering that workforce agenda on people is something that's top of mind for me as secretary, but also it leads into Governor Healey's leadership approach in Massachusetts as well, focusing on this values-based leadership style, and knowing that we want to make sure that we're providing more pathways and opportunities, and making sure there was more even playing fields for people to be able to pursue these careers that we have here. Massachusetts is awesome. We have this innovation. We have high growth industries. We have hotbeds of healthcare and leadership in life sciences and emerging areas like clean energy happening right here in Massachusetts. We want to make sure that everyone from our communities across the Commonwealth have an opportunity to jump into the exciting careers that we know exist right here in Massachusetts.
And Gerald, you're coming on 25 years of Year Up's origin. How did you even conceive of this? How did you pinpoint the kind of opportunity divide as something you wanted to take on? Tell us a little bit about the origin story. And, looking back, we chatted about this a little bit yesterday. Could you have ever conceived of the success and impact that you would have made?
When we started Year Up, and one of the founders is here with us today, Richard Dubuisson, who's in the audience, first teacher that we hired, who's an amazing teacher. But what we knew up front is that we had amazing young people in this country who had ability, who had ambition, who had hustle. And we also knew employees needed good workers. And frankly, there was a broken system, right? Those who needed the opportunity weren't getting it. Those businesses weren't getting access to talent. I had a chance to see that very close through the Big Brothers program for what is now 40 plus years. I've been a Big Brother, but I spent a lot of time in the communities that we serve, pretty much every Saturday of my life for several years. And I saw up close, we're wasting talent in this country. We have the best talent in Roxbury, in Dorchester, in Mattapan, right here in our city. And we're not seeing it, we're not accessing it. And so that really was the idea we brought. It says this is about helping those young adults find those companies, and knew that those companies would benefit from that talent. It's a diverse workforce that brings different perspectives, different creative ideas. And Year Up now, goodness, 45,000 students in, has proven that you are the talent this country does need. And in fact, I just have to say, you all look beautiful today. You look absolutely beautiful. And I appreciate the effort you took to look professional, right? As students who are what, day 5 in this program? It's a new group of students just started. You look fantastic. Thanks for making such an effort to be professionals.
Yeah, I had the chance to spend a couple of years of grad school here in the Boston area. And one of the things I feel like I took away from that was this understanding of tri-sector competence, that to really tackle larger challenges, you needed the private sector and the public sector and nonprofits all kind of working together. And it strikes me that workforce is probably the quintessential topic related to that. So, Madam Secretary, how do you think about kind of leveraging these various sectors to kind of help coordinate, aggregate, and collaborate to kind of make a more targeted impact on workforce development?
I appreciate the question. Earlier this year, Governor Healy, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, and I released the state's workforce agenda under this administration. Governor Healy came into office in January 2023, and it was our first opportunity to put pen to paper a workforce agenda that we can pursue, serving as kind of a playbook to attract talent, retain talent, develop that talent, and think of the infrastructure that we need to do exactly that. And for that infrastructure, such a big part of that is collaboration. It is bringing together industry and employers to the same table as the nonprofit, including training providers, academia, and then also having government play a role in not only investing in some programs in partnership with employers, but also engaging more intentionally with our community-based organizations and investing in more opportunities to find amazing talent, untapped talent, and ensuring that that recipe is helping to boost more outcomes. In a more tangible way, the collaboration speaks for itself in the grant applications that we provide and we push out. So we're investing so much money in workforce development, but we actually require that our grants not only have you in mind, who can we actually invest in to have seats filled with amazing untapped talent that's gaining the skills, but ensuring that employers are part of the application, reflecting the needs that employers and industry is looking for, and expecting that those employers are ready and willing to hire your trained talent at the end of this. And so really trying to be collaborative upfront, cultivating great relationships, and then ensuring that that collaboration is leading to the outcomes that we ultimately want to have. And we try to stand up this collaborative spirit in every region of the state. We're in Boston today, but we have these, what I like to call workforce teams in every region of the state, from the Berkshires, thinking of Pittsfield and that region, all the way to the Cape, thinking from, Bourne to Barnstable, and then all the way north, you got Merrimack Valley, all the way south, Attleboro, and all points in between. We have workforce teams that include community colleges, other institutions in higher education, employers represented in those regions, especially in the in-demand regions or industries like healthcare, advanced manufacturing, technology, life sciences represented, so that we are informing the curriculum that's going to be relevant in those training programs to then fill those needs. So it's definitely need that collaborative spirit from start to finish.
Just to add to that, it's really important the leaders we have in this country see you. And not everyone sees people the same. So I also want to just compliment the secretary, because I know and know her pretty well. When she looks at you, she sees talent. Right? And it matters, your leaders define, well, who's talented in this country and where do I look for talent? Right? That's a leadership decision. And so the secretary and the governor have always from day one said, we see talent in communities that have not been served well, that have not been tapped for talent, that have not been the focus in the past. And that matters, right? It's a huge testament to how leadership impacts who gets access to opportunity in this state. And I know and kind of sleep well knowing that the secretary sees people well and sees all of you in a way that is respectful and cognizant of how smart and capable you are. So I just want to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Gerald has been amazing to learn from. I know we were going to be talking about lifelong learning, but he's an amazing leader that you guys all should make sure that when you're networking, you have the opportunity to speak with this gentleman, because great knowledge. And I look up to the work that he's been able to do with organizations like Europe, recognizing the impact that Europe has had and that kind of intentionality. And that's how I want to make sure I can lead, because we need more Europes, we need more outcomes that you're pushing out and promoting. So I appreciate
Thanks,
that as
Secretary.
well.
So Gerald, I mean, today the proof of concept is so clear about Europe's value proposition, what corporations get, but I'm sure that wasn't the case early on. Talk a little bit about what that journey of storytelling and persuasion was like to get the corporations and the private sector partners to see the talent that we all see today. And what was, it was easy, I imagine, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Right?
No, and I'd moved back to this country. I lived abroad for about 9 years. So when I came back, I didn't know anyone and didn't have that network. So I tell you, the most important thing is I found one person who would say, I believe in you and I'll give you a hand meeting a few people in Boston. And he called up some powerful people in Boston and said, look, I met this guy. I don't quite know exactly whether he can do it, but I want you to talk to him. And we'd go together and we met folks from all the way from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have some folks who are part of that early journey from the Commonwealth to Fidelity, to Putnam, to other organizations. And they said, we'll give you a shot. We'll let you try. But we had to work really, really hard. I got many more no's than yeses because 25 years ago, the individuals, young adults we're blessed to serve, we're not seen as going into the types of jobs you're going into today, right? And that's wrong. That's unjust. And I'll call it as such. So it was a disruptive thing 25 years ago. It's a lot more common today. But the fact is, why does Europe work? There's one reason why Europe has worked is because of you. Because remember, those first 22 students, they went in and they did well. They did well, and those companies came back to us and they said, we want what? More. So we served then 30, then 60. We've served 45,000, right? The reason it works is because you are the talent the country needs. You are the future of this country. And given the appropriate opportunity, you will lead us in a constructive, thoughtful, inclusive manner and impact those around you positively. And we've seen that happen, and it's just getting started. So it was hard in the beginning. It's a little bit easier now. But I think the country is moving to see a broader group of individuals as talented, and not just those who happen to have the privilege to go straight to a four-year degree at the age of 18, but those who said, hey, I have to work and go to school. Guess what? That's the majority of people in the United States of America. Work while they go to school. So don't ever think of yourselves as different. You're the majority of this country who's going to combine work and school, and you'll be tougher, better, and stronger because of it.
But now you have some data points, right? Like the federal government has even tracked the success of your alumni and students. Maybe just
13 years. Federal government spent $10 million studying Europe. $10 million over 13 years, because they said, we want to see it. Does this really work? And they did the highest level of analysis and study on Year Up over 13 years. And they came back to us. The federal government came back to us and said, your program and your students, you have raised wages for those individuals more than any other program in the history of the United States. Not our words, the words of the federal government. So we now know that it's causal, that it works. I look at some of our graduates in the audience today. I know darn well it works. And the question is, how does the country work together, as you say, in a trisectoral way to ensure that the government, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector work collectively to make sure that when we say the words land of opportunity, it's reality and not rhetoric. It's the reality for Americans to experience a land of opportunity, as opposed to something you say that's hollow. And together we can actually make that happen with the state.
Just to build upon that, thinking about the storytelling that goes into this, I've been so fortunate in this role and in previous roles to attend graduations. I've also been across the table from an employer trying to pitch a workforce training program. And as much as you may think it's exciting to hear from someone like me at a graduation or an event like that, I feel like the most meaningful person on that speaking panel is the graduate. And that person has that powerful opportunity to tell their own story. And oftentimes people in the audience will get chills because the person that's speaking, that graduate, will say something along the lines of, wow, I didn't realize that there were opportunities like this for me. I found out about this program, had to pinch myself. Who knew that others could believe in me to, as I invest in myself, to then pursue this? And here I am graduating with the skills, credentials, and a pathway for a meaningful career. And that's a selling point that any employer should say immediately yes to, because it's a no-brainer. It's an opportunity for employers to see exactly the benefit of programs like Year Up and so many other workforce programs that, again, keep people in mind and recognize that return on investment pays off so much more than what may cost for posting on a website or a job board. This is an opportunity to really bring in talent into the fold, invest really in your then existing talent because they're on your payroll, and then be able to make sure that the outcomes that we celebrate in graduations and so many more, and in rooms like this, can be part of the storytelling that can make it even more impactful to get employers to say yes.
Let's talk a little bit about education and four-year degrees. The Wall Street Journal had an interesting story in August where they highlighted Northeastern and universities that are actually giving people jobs while in school and kind of, I think, looking to adjust their own value prop about what people are going to get out of going to a traditional four-year college. Talk about higher education, right, in this country, and then let's kind of dive into lifelong learning and kind of providing more pathways for broader generations.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned disruption earlier. I think higher education is certainly experiencing this time where there is disruption. Higher education institutions have to think differently in how they are educating not only the students that they bring in that traditional 18 to 24-year-old range, but also how they can play a big part in that lifelong learning through credentials, through registered apprenticeship programs, opportunities to support adult learners into pathways that we know are so essential, and how higher ed can play a role. That said, we also know that higher ed is not meant for everybody, whether that is someone immediately graduating from high school or an adult learner that may be having a second chance in their career, pivoting in their career. There's so many other, what I like to call other ingredients in the pie that help to make our workforce whole. And so I think higher education, whether it's community colleges, private two-year institutions, or four-year institutions, certainly have a role to play from that academic partnership, but doesn't necessarily have to mean for a four-year degree. There's so many more outcomes that we can look to partner with higher education to make sure that we're providing the skills that can be so useful to the workforce we have today. And also employers are looking for workforce or workers in yesterday mode. So we have to think differently in how we are providing that talent in a more accelerated fashion. And 4 years may not be the right answer for every employer, as well as not the right answer for every individual. I'll pause there, but also say the really cool thing also about higher education as employers think about investing in their talent, there's always so many circumstances where someone may not have gone to a 4-year degree program or even a 2-year degree program to start off their career. But employers can also invest in their existing talent as a retention strategy to make sure that they have tuition reimbursement and opportunities to advance their profession by going back to school while they are retaining within the workforce within that company.
The Secretary is being humble because I'm going to brag a little bit. Under her administration and the governor, they now made community college free in Massachusetts. Right. I was chairman of Roxbury Community College for about 6 years, and I saw students drop out because they couldn't pay for books. Right, literally, I was in the bookstore and I just watched, and students like, I can't afford $110 for a book. I have to drop out, right? And then on top tuition, and the Pell Grants weren't covering everything they needed. Well, now in our state, community college is free, right? Now, that is a huge thing. I think also the work just recently passed in August is $2.4 million for re-entry education for those who may be coming from an adjudicated situation in getting back into the workforce and getting the training they need, right? That matters as well. There's a lot of different paths. The apprenticeships you've promoted as well. So I think we have the opportunity with government to say there isn't one path, right? We know that. The average age of a Bachelor of Arts in this country is 28. 28 years old. The average student who goes to college in America works 30 hours a week, average student. right? So we got to think about the systems that help all people get what they need. Money to take care of themselves, and education to keep furthering how much money grows and what they learn and what they can do. And it's not just a couple of years or after high school, it's your whole life. The rest of your life, the more you learn, the more you make. Like, think about this. Your brain is a car. What car, the more you drive it, the faster you drive it, the more valuable it gets. Think about that. You have this tool inside you. The more you use it, the more valuable it is. That's powerful. And you're just starting on the education journey. That's great. Don't stop ever.
If I can just, I appreciate you touting the early experiences we have as a state and as a administration. I think one thing I'll also mention, because we now have a year's worth of information. We just passed in Massachusetts free community college, as Gerald mentioned. But a year ago last September was the first semester to have Mass Reconnect, an opportunity for a free community college for adults 25 years or older who had not yet received a degree or credential, and providing that opportunity for that free tuition. And we know across all 15 of our community colleges, from the Berkshires again to the Cape, every region has a community college. Every community college saw a huge uptick in enrollment. And we see that as an opportunity for workforce. We want to make sure that those individuals that are enrolling in whether it's now Mass Reconnect or in community college generally, they're connected to the opportunities within our workforce. We also know that there's some barriers that will continue to persist. And so just yesterday, the Healy Driscoll administration announced a stipend pilot program. So we're testing it out. We want to see it be successful. We're leveraging some ARPA dollars to do just that. But through the Workforce Skills Fund that we've stood up, we are providing stipends for eligible individuals that go through 2 of our workforce training programs. Our Career Technical Initiative, which taps into vocational schools for adult learners to leverage equipment at voc schools and construction and manufacturing. And then also participants that go through our Workforce Competitiveness Trust Fund programs. Think any of the investments that we do, from healthcare and culinary to manufacturing and more. And so it's going to be a test to see. We're going to be measuring it every step of the way. And we anticipate what we probably already know, that having that stipend is a huge game changer, either to close some gaps financially from childcare costs, transportation cost, or your car breaks down and you have to choose one day whether you're going to be able to repair that car or drop out of the job training program that you've already invested so much in showing up to. We really want to hope that that will provide persistence. And then ultimately, with all the job training programs, the intent is for employment at the end too. And so that provides that immediate pathway as well.
Right.
As it relates to preparing young people with the new skills for the new jobs, I feel like that's the bigger challenge is how do you kind of pivot as the criteria of what employers want kind of evolves. And I spend a lot of time doing site selection for advanced manufacturing companies around the country. And the biggest topic and need from every company is talent, right? So we are now having this resurgence in manufacturing, and it doesn't seem like we've been prepared for it. So the federal government is going to invest a lot into companies to build more in America, but we haven't really been training young people in America to build stuff, right? So how do you think about that and making sure that Massachusetts is competitive and making sure that companies that are looking to the Commonwealth will feel confident that the labor is there, the talent is there, et cetera? And then Gerald, is there an opportunity for Europe? How do you think about every new class? Are there new skills, new requirements to kind of, prioritize? So
I think it's multifold. I mean, certainly we want to make sure that the programs we're investing in today, as I've mentioned, are connected directly to what employers are looking for, but it's also a pipeline. We have to be thinking about our partnership with our schools and trying to work in tandem with the public schools for innovation pathways, early college, even at an earlier age, as young as elementary school, thinking about science, technology, engineering, and math, and giving that exposure to young people so they know that they can pursue and they should see themselves in STEM-related career paths. And what may be what industry is looking for today for a fourth grader is going to clearly change by the time that they finish school, but they have seen themselves in manufacturing. And it's not the manufacturing from 50 years ago, it's advanced manufacturing with clean rooms, labs, innovation that really is so important. And we're investing here. Governor Healy is so bullish in making sure that we can pursue as many federal infrastructure grants, CHIPS and science, and all of that happening right here in Massachusetts. And so we want to make sure that we're also investing in our students. And I team up every day with Secretary Tutwiler of Education, along with Secretary Howe of Economic Development through our Workforce Skills Cabinet. And so talk about collaboration, but there's collaboration happening within state government, making sure that it's not done in a silo. So what is being stood up for education folds directly into workforce, folds directly into what we need from an economic competitiveness perspective and how to drive opportunities in every industry, these high growth industries, and making sure that we're kind of very closely knit in that. The last thing I'll mention is we've been working over the past several months on an initiative called Mass Talent, making sure that we are providing an improved front door. So when job seekers go through job training programs that we're investing in, or they're just curious and they have the skills and they can create a profile within a platform, they can then connect with employers who are today looking for that talent. And so we have tools that already exist across all industries through our Mass Hire Career Services, but we really stood up an initiative called Mass Talent to put a kind of emphasis on advanced manufacturing, life sciences, clean energy, healthcare and human services, and technology, knowing that employers are looking for people with the skills, with the knowledge, with the ability to do well in these in-demand roles that are hard to fill, but we need to fill them today. And so there's this connection marketplace. I'm kind of giving a soft launch announcement for it, but the governor will be formally announcing it in the weeks to come. But if you visit mass.gov/mass talent, you can get a sense of what we're trying to make it easier for employers and job seekers to connect today as well.
Workforce Skills Cabinet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we actually expanded. So under the previous administration, they had this notion of bringing in the 3 secretariats together. I would actually say, going back to Governor Patrick's administration, there was a staff person who I'm still friends with to this day who brought secretaries of economic development, education, and workforce development together. And that's improved over the years. We actually added the Secretary of Health and Human Services, not only recognizing how vast and in need our healthcare and human service industries are across the state, but also recognizing the populations that HHS serves and ways that there are so much investment through federal and state dollars supporting individuals, especially low-income individuals, individual with disabilities, and so much more. We can be talking and investing together to lift up those populations. So yeah, we just met last Friday as our most recent meeting. Our teams meet very daily, if not weekly, to make sure that we're pushing forward a shared agenda, again, to focus on ways to advance skills and break down those silos that sometimes exist in government.
I think what's important is there's 2 things to think about if you're an employer. Clearly, there are skills that you need, right? Those skills are going to change pretty quickly. Right? Just think of in your own lifetime, right? Just in the last year, the ability to use AI, right? In ChatGPT, right? Raise your hand if you've used that today.
You mean today for these questions?
Yeah, so that tool fundamentally changes. It's a skill to know how to use that well, right? How do I prompt this tool so that it can help me to do things quicker? It's a skill. It wasn't a skill I needed to have a year ago. So the skills, think about being nimble, right? So I think, how does government, how do nonprofits, how are not only we nimble to change the skills we teach as the economy shifts, but what's not going to change? Your level of professionalism. So always remember this, is people want first someone who has the professionalism, the attitudinal, behavioral, and communication skills. We call them the ABCs, right? Attitude, behavior, communication. You have someone who comes to you as a great attitude, someone who shows up, who's reliable, and who wants to and is willing to learn, trust me, you're good. Because what it is that you need to learn will keep changing. But you have that attitude, behavior, and the ability, willingness to learn, to ask questions, to say when you don't know something. And that's a lot what you'll learn at Year Up is the level of professionalism that you will have will be better than someone coming out of a 4-year degree. I will promise you that, because employers have told it to me over 20 years, your students are more professional. And then what you have to do, you're responsible for, is pushing yourself to keep learning and shifting the skills. So when AI comes out, You say, well, that's not for me. You say, I'm going to figure that out. How does that make me smarter, faster, better? How do I do my assignments quickly? How do I figure it out? And within industry, so Europe in Washington, D.C., actually was Virginia, one of the big semiconductor companies came to us and said, can you help us? We said, well, what's the job? And they taught us about the job of manufacturing in a clean room when you're actually creating a fab, fabricating microchips. We trained students for that. The starting salary was about $60,000. And trust me, there are jobs doing that for a long time to come in this country. So part of what Europe's trying to do is keep being nimble, right? To keep preparing you for the jobs that are coming in growing and doing that in partnership with others. But never forget, though, the professional skills, that doesn't change people. Those you want to just deepen, right? Be the best professional you can be. And employers are always going to respect that. And they always need that. And it's a differentiator in the workplace today.
So we were chatting a little bit beforehand about your kind of comprehensive approach, you and the governor, right? You're addressing housing issues, et cetera. So when you think about workforce, I think you made the comment like all roads lead to workforce. So just talk about how much of a holistic endeavor it is when you're thinking about workforce, because it's not a siloed kind of effort, right?
It's definitely, it takes that collaboration that we've kind of emphasized throughout today's conversation. While we have the workforce skills cabinet and it includes 4 secretariats, I also work with our Secretary for Energy and Environment. I sat down with Secretary of Housing, and when we were thinking about the major investment in the housing bond bill that the governor proposed that just got passed by the legislature, we were meeting with housing to talk through some elements to make sure that we were thinking about what our workforce will look like to build the housing that we need. So there's so much with that public safety, transportation. Our workforce agenda that we're using as a playbook really calls out opportunities as we think about attracting and retaining talent, intersections with practically every secretary within the governor's administration, which ultimately means so many different community-based organizations, industry partners, and people that are across our Commonwealth, our workforce partners that can really help lift up more pathways for people. So I think it is a whole of government approach. We're taking the same kind of whole of government approach right now and addressing investments in our early childhood education system, making it more affordable and accessible, but also the workforce that we need for early educators. So I think it's the spirit of teamwork that Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll emphasize. I don't know if folks know that they are huge basketball players. So they take that energy that they've learned on the court and had really encouraged all of the secretaries or teams to think about teamwork, not just within the cabinet, but across partnerships to get things done.
Love it.
Gerald, you
Love
play
it.
basketball.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty,
You might want Rob
pretty
Dixon
poorly.
instead, I
Yeah,
mean.
I'm sure there's several people in the audience who'll dispel you of that quickly.
I am not a basketball.
Although I will say the Europe teams used to compete in the corporate leagues in Boston, and we have a lot of trophies from Europe graduate teams who can pretty much beat up on these corporations in basketball. It's a lot of fun.
Well, look, we're winding down here. Gerald, you've stepped into this kind of senior advisor role, right? Give us a kind of quick assessment of where you think the next 25 years for Europe is headed.
I mean, the most important thing I was saying to some students earlier for any founder is to know how do you promote and create succession. It's incredibly important. And we spent 5-6 years doing that. And Ellen McLean, our current CEO, absolutely rose to be the best candidate to lead Europe into the next chapter. So the most important thing is look within, support people to grow, and see who can rise up to take that forward. You know, Ellen grew up in Stoughton. She's a woman of color, grew up doing busing in Boston, which is a pretty difficult time in this city. And so having the leadership to lead this organization forward, and I'm proud to say Europe's executive team is 100% women and people of color, 100%, right? That's pretty impressive. You know, you won't find many $200 million organizations that actually have that profile of governance and leadership. And so we know who we serve, right? We want to make sure the leaders of this organization understand and reflect who we serve every day. And we have that. So I believe we have the culture and the values and the willingness to keep adapting, right? To adapt to the economy, adapt to how Europe operates, so that we can keep meeting the market and keep serving young adults going forward. But I feel great about where the organization is, and certainly blessed that I continue to have an opportunity to be of service to our students, who are amazing. Not a day goes by in my life that I don't talk to one of our students graduates. Not one.
I think you talked to 4 back-to-back yesterday before we went.
Exactly. I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. We're focused on succession too. I have my 11-year-old drinking coffee now, so we're gonna. Let's just focus on a last kind of call to action. As you sit here, Massachusetts is a commonwealth of innovation, of builders, of a storied legacy, of kind of putting the country on a pathway for what's next. What is your kind of call to action to corporations, to nonprofits, education, as you look to tackle these daunting challenges?
Well, I'm looking at a room filled of amazing, diverse talent right here. So my call to action would be for employers to be looking inward in what their current playbook may be, and make sure that they are finding themselves in rooms like this, to partner with organizations that are investing in amazing talent like we have here today, connecting directly with that talent and opening more doors for the talent that we know is right here in Massachusetts, that we want to stay here in Massachusetts and we want to lift up because we have awesome opportunities right here in Massachusetts.
And Gerald, I mean, what do you want to hear from corporate leaders? Should they be calling Europe? You
Sure.
want folks around the country.
Yep.
You're doing new innovative things even around manufacturing now. So
Yeah. And first of all, just say, Ken, to you first, thanks for bringing the show to Boston.
honor.
Great job.
You got it. Thanks, Three. Good.
Ken interviews governors and senior CEOs all over the country. And so I just want to say thanks for coming to join us. Look, if you're a corporation today and you have power to decide kind of the rules of the game, what you want to say is don't use a 4-year degree as the sole sorting mechanism to decide who has ability and who doesn't, right? When you do that, you exclude 83% of Latinos and 78% of African Americans in the country. So don't use a blunt sorting mechanism, because unfortunately today in America, I can tell whether you're going to get a 4-year degree more by your bank balance than your SAT score. That's not just, is it? Doesn't make sense. So don't use this tool to sort people out. It is inappropriate. Say to your HR department, let us adopt a skills-based approach to hiring. To understand what skills do you bring, not were you lucky enough and privileged enough to get a 4-year degree quickly. Look at someone's skills. That's the number one thing companies can do to actually open the door of opportunity to more folks, is assess you for your lived experience, your skills, what you bring to the party. That will create, frankly, a more democratic society in which more people can have access to economic mobility. That's what we need companies and leaders to do, which many of Europe's, 400 companies we worked with last year, their leaders made that decision and open up the door of opportunity for our students. So we need that continued push on skills-based hiring.
Gerald, thank you for hosting. Thank you to the team at Year Up. Madam Secretary, what a privilege to have you here as well. And most importantly, thank you to all of you.
Hey, thanks, guys.
We're just getting things rolling for the fall, so you can always tune in on coffeewithken.com to catch up on past episodes and to stay focused on what's coming next. So until next time, thank you.